So at the end of an interview or during the interview, you find a recruiter saying, do you have any questions for us?
True.
And somebody says no.
Yeah, no, I'm
no,
fine.
I'm good. Because maybe you just can't wait to get out of the room. Maybe you're sweating. Maybe you're like, my heart is pumping so fast.
You don't want to start a new conversation.
Right? Because it might actually drag for another 20 minutes. Yeah. So people do that. And I also encourage people, have 2 or 3 questions that you prepare for, for the interview, so that you also show interest. Guys, you need to be eager. You need to be curious. You need to be hungry for knowledge. You need to be hungry. And once you get that opportunity, do everything you can to actually get there. Everybody started at the bottom. Whether you studied marketing management, whether you studied engineering, nobody started as a manager, or as a plant manager, as whatever. We all started at the bottom, whether through learnership, internship, or graduate program, or being a temp for someone, or covering up, or even job shadowing, which is another thing that people can do to actually get experience. Right? One of those days, I'm off, and someone calls in sick, please call me.
There you go.
Like we actually do that. Hence I said, show up.
Don't feel like they're taking advantage.
Don't feel that. And half the time people feel that, no, they're taking advantage. No, they're giving me useless jobs. No, they're actually taking me for granted. And imagine, I actually studied for 4 years and I've got a cum laude and everything else.
And now I have to make tea.
King David Studio Podcast.
This Wednesday thing I do where I bring people who know a little more than we do. From all sorts. Once I had a guest here who knew about blackouts. Said blackout is a reality. It's coming. And now we have politicians talking about it. And he said it on this channel more than 5 months ago or so. So today I brought someone who knows a lot more about the world of work, HR and all of that. It's called an HR specialist. We'll find out more about it. Boniwe, Dunster, how you doing, ma'am?
I'm great, thanks. And how are you?
I'm awesome. It's a pleasure, to have you, because I realized that I don't know as much about the world of work.
Sure.
Because the last 23 years of my life, I've been a freelance worker.
Okay.
And the other side of my life, I've been employing people.
Yes.
And I come across a lot of challenges because I see it from different sides. So I don't have the traditional sense of a job where there's HR issues. And I've never had that. Or if I did, it was a very short period of my life. So that's why you're here.
Sure.
You're HR specialist. What does HR specialists do? What does that entail?
It entails a lot of things, but I think by virtue of saying specialist, it means that I've got vast knowledge and experience in the HR fraternity or in the HR profession. And my specialty allows me to be able to guide and help people navigate the world of work so that they can have better careers, or meaningful careers rather.
Is the world of work as complicated as we think it is?
To be honest, it is, right? It is. And purely because it's also legislated, right? There's legislation to it. And obviously legislation is complex. And legislation is also derived from the Constitution. Understanding and unpacking the Constitution is also complex. So by virtue of that, it is. And also you deal with people, different kind of people, different seasons in a career, different periods. There's highs, there's lows, So that really makes it complex.
It's almost like your traditional healer, goes spine.
Ooh,
Let me break it down, because I come with my problems.
Oh my goodness!
And then somebody else is coming with a different problem. Obatla BMW. So you see them in all shapes and sizes, I guess.
Wow.
So if somebody's going to say, yeah, she is.
Please don't.
Help us navigate this. I want this first recording to be about young people.
Sure.
There's this thing that I do on my radio show on Wednesdays where I ask people to come and sell their skills on the radio and tell the world what is it that they're able to do, and hopefully somebody will give them a job.
Sure.
And because the entire process of looking for work can be quite complex for a lot of people, or they just don't know how to do it. It's almost like Hoshela. Not everybody knows how to pull it off. Not everybody knows, like, it's that kind of thing. So I want to start here. CVs. Let's simplify this conversation.
Sure.
Has the trends changed? I remember how I used to do my CV years ago. I haven't done one in a while, but trends changed over time?
Sure. I think how CVs look and the information that needs to be contained in there has changed over time, right?
Yeah.
Even the formatting. Recently, I was talking to someone else. We were talking about an ATS system, which is an applicant tracking system, which is an automated or an artificial intelligence system that large employers use, right? And by virtue of that, because it's automated, it's made to reject and accept certain things. So remember in the past, and I'm sure you're talking about your CV that had word art,
Of course.
those fancy,
I would have
whatever, heavy, yes,
the front page.
Definitely.
Yeah.
An ATS system will not recognize that. It will actually reject your CV if it has graphics, if it has columns, if it has tables and all of those. But I think the information that's important in your CV, it's obviously your personal information that goes as far maybe as your name and your surname. You can include maybe the area that you stay in, but it's not really mandatory. People in the past used to put in their ID numbers and date of birth and addresses and all of those.
Is it still necessary?
To a certain extent, I discourage it, and I'll tell you why. We live in a world whereby people can easily be discriminated by age, by race, by gender. So why put it there if another human being that's going to be looking at your CV might discriminate you, right? So if you've got my name and my surname and my contact number, and you know that I stay in South Africa and I'm South African, invite me to an interview so that you can be able to, to assess my capabilities. I think for me, would leave it there when it comes to personal information. Then you'll put in your qualification and your work experience. And obviously, even with those, they need to be in a chronological order. What that means is that your latest experience needs to be at the top, right? What are you currently doing, or what was your last job? The first job needs to come at the bottom. You know what I mean? Same applies to your qualifications. Your latest should be at the top. Your matric should be at the bottom. So those are some of the things that you need to include. You need to include your skills. You need to include your expertise as well. So those are the key things. Any other thing, it might really necessarily not be relevant.
My hobbies, we used to write hobbies.
We used to write hobbies. We actually had a conversation about hobbies recently as well. So hobbies for me, I think they actually make you a holistic person, I can see what you're interested in. I can see the courses, that you're interested in the community. Maybe you are interested in climate change, GBV and all of those, or maybe you're an activist, For me, I would say it would be good to actually have those, but a lot of people don't really believe that they are mandatory. But if you are senior, right, maybe you're an executive and so forth, maybe it might not be necessary. But if you're someone that has just left school or about to leave school, you don't really have much to put in your CV, and maybe you played hockey, or you are a debating society secretary, or all of those things, then I'm sure you can actually put them in.
Because it defines you as a leader, it defines you as a team player, and all of those characters.
Yeah, so I think that's important for you to put
the technology that assesses these CVs. It's the first time I hear of it.
Okay.
How does it work exactly? You receive it?
Sure.
You insert it into the system, it goes through it.
Yeah.
And why is it necessary? Because then it takes away the human from the process.
It takes away the human element. But the reason that you find a lot of organizations are using that ATS, which is applicant tracking system, is purely because sometimes they are dealing with a large number of CVs or applicants or bulk recruitment, right? So you can't also have a human being going through 1,000 CVs, in all fairness, right? And we are in the 4th industrial revolution. We're now talking about the 5th industrial revolution. So we also need to automate things that will make our lives easier so that we can invest our time as human resources professionals in other meaningful things. So what this system does is, like, you will actually upload your details or probably upload your CV. However, it is designed in a sense that it can be the first line of screening before it gets to the human capital practitioner or the recruiter. So there will be certain keywords that it really identifies. So it will say, I'm looking for an HR specialist, so many years of experience. I'm looking for communication skills, negotiation skills, talent management, performance management, and all of those. And you find that if I put my CV through the system and it doesn't match the needs or the requirements that have been put in that system, it will reject it, because automatically, according to the system, I don't qualify, right? First of all, I don't have HR experience. Secondly, I don't have the skills or the expertise that I really mentioned there. Maybe I don't even have the number of years or experience that are required. So already it filters that. So by the time it gets to me as a human being to filter, I know that, ones that do not meet the criteria
are out.
Then the human element comes in and I can go through it. However, the downside of the system is that you will find people that are qualified and have experience not making it through the system because of the format of the CV.
Because it's almost like a search engine optimization with the internet.
Sure.
With websites, it's the words that are spread out on the actual site in this context.
Yes.
So Leona, it's looking for those words. So if they're not properly placed, that could also be an issue.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that you don't have the experience or you're not the right person. So what I often advise young people or any other job applicant to do is like, look at the job description, look at your CV, see how you can mirror the two. Right? Sometimes you find that organizations use different terminologies, right? And sometimes it's European companies, American companies, South African companies. So terminology and, acronyms, they differ. So match it to what you're applying for. So what that means is that every time that you apply for a job, you need to update your CV to meet the requirements of that particular job. So gone are those days where you have one document and you use it for each and every job that you're applying for. And that's why people don't get called.
We've done that for years. I'm sure you've done that too.
Sometime I did.
When your CV was only one.
Yes.
And for all the jobs, you just send that.
Yes. But now you can't do that anymore. Especially if your application is done through a system, right?
Yeah.
But if you're still emailing, probably if you're still posting or dropping off, maybe. But if it's through the system, then you might want to reconsider.
Whoa. A lot has changed.
A lot has changed.
When was this introduced? Is it fairly recent?
It's been a while.
Really?
I can't think when, but it's literally been a while, a long time ago.
Here's some of the things that matter for me when it comes to CVs. References.
Sure.
Surely it must be the type of people they have your back.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I always say that to people. Never make a mistake of putting someone as your reference without getting a consent from them or aligning with them, right? Because you're going to put your manager. Maybe you haven't seen your manager in 5 years since you've left. They've forgotten about you. They have moved themselves. They call, I'm calling about David Mashabela. Who's David? Right? So make sure that whoever that you put in, it's somebody that is recent, somebody that can be able to talk to your capabilities, and somebody that can be able to vouch and advocate for the kind of work that you are looking for. And it's important to also get their permission, because now we also talk about Poppy Act. So for you to go and put someone's name and surname and telephone number without their consent, you're actually exposing their personal information. But that's not the case. The case is you having to make sure that someone knows that they're your referee and they must expect it. And sometimes if you're going through the recruitment process and it gets so advanced that it looks positive, maybe you can also give them the heads up. Hey, I've been going through this process. Things are looking good. They might potentially be calling you. So please have a look out. It's very important. And align. I've applied for this job. These are the requirements. This is what I might have highlighted as my projects that I did when I worked with you, just as a reminder.
So sell me correctly.
Sell me correctly.
And we're dealing with South Africa that has its own issues.
Sure.
I have been unemployed for a while. My last job was 5 years ago. And this story, I bet you it's common amongst a lot of South Africans. I'm still applying. When I initially got unemployed, I used you as my reference, as my just immediate boss.
Sure.
It's 5 years later. I don't have anybody else. What do I do in a situation like that? I genuinely, you're the last person that was my boss, or you're not even around anymore.
Yeah.
Anything is possible.
That's possible as well. However, remember, your referees, they don't necessarily have to be your line manager.
Yeah.
You could have had other stakeholders, in other departments or external stakeholders that you might have worked for. And you can actually get those people to also play reference. Or it could be sometimes your mentor or your coach, right? So also be open to having other people as your referees other than just your line manager. But it should be people that have had some kind of exposure to the work that you have done. And if it has been for 5 years, I think in your CV or probably in the interview, that question of what happened in the 5 years, that gap, and you can make mention, probably I got retrenched, I was never able to secure a job. Or maybe I was ill, I had to take, time off to actually focus on my health. And, obviously in an interviewer must actually afford you an opportunity to say, do you have questions for us? Is there anything that we need to be aware of? You can actually say, since I last worked, my previous line manager, is no more, or I don't have contact with them. So it might actually be a challenge. So be aware that the people that you're calling, they're my mentors or life coaches, or whoever, bring that to their attention, and no one will actually fault you. And as much as people do references, it's a small portion as well of the criteria. Remember, there's an interview, there's your capabilities, there's your qualification, there's the years of experience. What do you bring? So you also can't also penalize someone just because they don't have a recent reference, or they haven't worked, or somebody that they believed could actually be a good reference for them is no more. So it's only a fraction in the matrix when you're making a decision to recruit someone.
Do you know, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, with references that you feel will sell you. And you said very clearly that you must call them, make sure they're aware, don't miss that little point.
Sure.
And now the gap, let's go back to the 5-year gap. Maybe there's value in keeping in touch.
Sure.
Because, they're still around, and you can always say, hey man, heads up again.
Yeah.
It's 5 years later. But here's another point about the 5-year gap. I've been unemployed for 5 years, but I wasn't just sitting around.
Of course.
I was doing other things. Is there value in adding whatever it is that I was doing?
Sure.
How did I occupy this 5 years?
That's
so
very
it sells
important.
me.
That's very important, because it says that you were also vested in your development as well and keeping busy, right? Sometimes you could actually be running a vegetable garden, for example, or you were volunteering at a local NGO, or you were running aftercare classes at your house. So whatever that you might have been doing during that time, you actually can put it in your CV as well. And the people that you have worked with can actually play a referee to your work as well, because remember, sometimes when you do references, it's not only about technical abilities or capabilities. Sometimes it's about your character. Sometimes it's about the soft skills, your leadership skills, timekeeping, time management, leadership, and all of those things. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a line manager that talks around that. Your time management and planning and organizing, they can also be applicable in an NGO that you're working at. So please demonstrate what were you doing during that gap. And that is actually fairly acceptable.
What was I doing in the 5 years? It also means you can't just sit around.
Sure.
Because it doesn't look good.
That doesn't look good.
If the question, what have you been doing for the past 5 years, comes up in an interview.
Yeah.
And you are half.
Yeah, it's like, they don't really take interest in their development, or how do they remain relevant, when things are changing. I remember when I was still in corporate, one of the questions that we used to ask, especially during your 2021 and maybe like 2022 early, we could be like, what kind of personal development have you focused on during COVID? Because we wanted to know, just because there was COVID and there was lockdown and universities were closed or colleges.
What were you doing?
And we actually saw a high uptake of Udemy courses, of LinkedIn Learning and all of those things. And those are actually sufficient. Or maybe I joined a professional body. By virtue of joining a professional body, there are webinars. That's as good as doing something for yourself, right? Yeah. So it's not only around things that require you to have money to pay for them in terms of learning. Reading a book is actually part of learning.
I read a book a week.
I read a book a week. Or I read, 3 books that actually spoke about, change management or climate change, and for that, I've actually learned that what I thought I knew was limited. But now I've realized that the legislation have changed, the world policies have changed, and all of those. And this is how we actually got to where we are now as a world or as a society. So you need to demonstrate that, because they actually say something about you. They say something about your personal development, your character, your willingness to learn, your eagerness to stay relevant in the profession that you've actually chosen.
We exist in a time when the process of applying for work can be costly.
Sure.
It's not zero cost. Where the process of going to interviews is not zero cost. Is there, and I'm asking this very innocently, a sensitivity to my problems, or a company is just looking for what they're looking for? Your problems are your problems.
Half the time, people would not really be interested in your problems, right? But you do have actually employers or recruiters rather that would be sensitive to that. You might actually decide to say, you know what, you are in Gauteng, I'm in the Eastern Cape. Traveling will not be easy. Is it possible that we can conduct the first round of interviews virtually? We've had to accommodate that. And especially in South Africa, COVID-19 has actually exacerbated the rate of technological usage in our world of work. So can we do Zoom? Can we do Skype? Can we do whatever, right? So that we can actually ascertain if I need to come for a second round of interview. And by then, I would have actually then made a plan, right? I have had done that in my past. I have seen colleagues, in the industry or in the fraternity doing the same thing. We are humans and we really understand. And sometimes you look at someone's CV and you can this person has not worked. This person stays in some village or whatever. And sometimes people stay in rural areas where there's no network. But you think that, I think we need to give this person an opportunity. And you persist on, on calling. So we are humans at the end of the day. Somebody has given us an opportunity to do that. There are other employers who would actually even fund for your travel, to come to move from one province.
They see value in your submission.
In your submission. And other employers are so advanced to an extent that as part of their recruitment budget for the year, they actually budget for recruitment travel for candidates, right? There's a certain percentage that's actually allocated for, to actually fund, a candidate's travel so that they can be able to make it. And when you do that, and you're also funding candidates that, they have potential, I see value, there's potential. I think this person, given the right opportunity, they will do it. And somebody just needs a break. So there are people that are sensitive. I don't want to paint everybody with the same brush, but it also depends on the organizational culture and the leadership. Right? There are those people that will not say, we're not interested, let's move to the next one. Or, people that are saying, I'm calling you today and you're from KZN, the interview's tomorrow. Whoa, how can the interview be tomorrow?
That's just unfair.
So there's those kind of behaviors that, of course, we work in terms of rectifying as a profession. But I think people generally do have a heart.
I'm curious and I'm hoping at the end of all of this, we achieved one goal.
Sure.
Getting someone to go look at their CV again.
Please.
Getting someone, to restructure it such that it wins.
Sure.
Because I'm a little concerned that we have a lot of people whose challenges are right at the beginning.
Yeah.
They got all the skills and the talent, but it's their ability to sell themselves.
Sure.
Let's move to the next stage of what are you looking for once I walk through that door? And I'm here for an interview.
Right. I'm looking for confidence. I'm looking for, presentation, right? Your eagerness. Of course, each and every interview, you will actually be anxious, you're right?
Of course.
It doesn't matter how senior you are. I'm HR. I've been in the profession for like 18 years or so.
Yeah.
But if I get into an interview, there's still that kind of, nerves. But, it's like, how do you pull yourself, together? So I think confidence plays a very important part.
Yeah.
And it's things that don't really come easy. But, with practice, they get better. And now with social media, there's people on YouTube, on TikTok, they share tips, go there for free. You don't have to pay someone for that. Yes, there are people that pay for such services, but if you can't afford it, go there, watch, listen, take notes, practice, record yourself, record your answer, stand in front of the mirror, especially at an entry-level position, right? And if someone is a graduate or, their first job, you're not really expecting a lot, but I think you're just expecting the eagerness, the attitude, the willingness to learn, someone to say, give me the opportunity and I will do it. And that's what you're looking for. Oftentimes we say we don't really hire necessarily for experience, but we hire for attitude, because attitude you can teach, but skill you can teach, right? And that's what you're looking for when you're actually engaging with someone. The openness, did this person prepare? Did this person read about the company? Do they even know what our company values are? Do they know what their own ones are? Can they come together? Do they even know what we are in the news for? Do they know that we were on the front page of whatever yesterday? So you're looking for those simple things, especially at an entry-level job. So if you can get those basics right, I think you're good to go.
You'll be all right, yeah. Because I've interviewed a few people, and I'm the casual type.
As the employer.
Yeah. No, very casual. I remember once I said, let's take a walk.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
And then we walked with
Sure.
this guy.
Right.
Because I didn't want, because I could tell his state of mind is he's not okay. And I said, let's walk. Let's go chat while we're walking. And I ended up hiring the guy. So I guess in a corporate sense, stuff like that wouldn't happen. It's not common.
It's not common to walk, but it's common to actually make the
environment
very relaxed. I remember we were interviewing, and it was actually quite a senior role with this executive. And I think the first round of interviews actually shocked the candidates because of the seniority of the role. But one of the things was like, how would your friends describe you? And how would your grandmother describe you as versus to your friends and your manager? Yeah. And one of the questions is like, if you were to explain to your grandmother what is, strategy execution, how will you explain it in layman terms, right? Yes. And people was like, but why would you ask me about my grandmother? Because you actually want to get a person comfortable, you actually want to get a person to relax. So it also depends on the hiring manager and the culture of the organization, because we also get to understand that you being anxious or being nervous, rather, it doesn't mean that you are not capable. Or sometimes you actually have a conversation and you were laughing for 30 minutes, but in the 30 minutes you're actually answering questions.
Almost all the questions.
Right?
Yes.
Oh, did you see that press conference yesterday by this political party? Yes. And what were your thoughts?
And this is still the casual part of the chat.
Casual. And how were your thoughts? Do you agree with them? Would you vote for them? And all of those things. But it's an interview. I want to get to understand what is your value system. What are your values? Because honestly, sometimes you can't just ask questions as per the interview guide, right? Sometimes you need to paraphrase your question. Sometimes you need to make someone get comfortable. And you say, no, do you want tea? Yeah. Or can we get you water? Do you want a piece of cake, perhaps? Whatever. Yes. We actually get to do those things. But it also depends on the recruiter, on the line manager, and on the culture. Yes. And sometimes the CV is so impressive to say, I want to engage this person further.
And you find what you saw has to do with GBV.
Right.
Whatever it is they've been doing, they're involved, and now you're suddenly interested and you want to probe more.
We've actually been in positions where we've hired people that we think they didn't really answer the technical questions, but you're like, this will be a good culture fit. And if I can pair them with David, with his certain skills, I think they can be a good team. Wow. And anyway, I need to diffuse the tension or the friction that's in my team. And I think this person is going to bring that balance. So let's bring this person. And then for the next 6 months, we're going to put this plan in place for them to be able, to get on with the job. But that's in an ideal world. It doesn't happen every day, but it does happen.
The technical aspects will always be number one.
Of course.
Yeah. Social media footprint. We post
a lot.
We post with a bottle of Savannah on my head. It's my weekend time. What I do with my life is my life.
I know.
We post with the cricket at Konka. We're having a great time, and I post that stuff.
Sure.
Do you go through? Are you interested in my
You've got employers that are interested. And now if you're going to do vetting, which is where we check your qualifications, authenticity, your ID, and all of those through bodies that does that, right? Now there's actually an option on social media background check. Like really. So when I check for your ID, your qualification, your address, your work experience, and all of those, there's an option where I can tick social media
footprint,
whatever. Yes.
Activity
or whatever.
Yes.
Right? And they bring up the report and we actually have a look. And you know what? That's not done everywhere and not every employer does that. But I'll tell you, the reason why people do that or employers do that, they also want to get to understand what you presented a true version of yourself.
True.
Are you being authentic? Right? From a culture perspective, will you be able to fit into our culture? Right? And maybe our culture is not that one of having to put bottles on our head. Or maybe
it is.
Maybe it is. We need someone to bring a vibe to this party. So sometimes it's just to check from a cultural perspective, will this person fit? Yeah. And is that what they portrayed? Is it actually true to what their social media is saying? And we've got organizations that actually carry different values and they focus on different societal ills and address, different, agendas that we are facing. Sure. And probably what you're posting and what you believe in is completely different. And why would you do that? And like, for example, maybe we've spoken now about GBV. You've got an organization that, does not stand GBV at all. And part of their CSI, budget, it goes to, such courses, such activism and all of those things. And you have posted to say, you know what, I will not let such and such, disrespect me, or a woman talk to me like that. If it was my wife, I would have actually shown her place and whatever.
And they find that.
And they find that, in all honesty, it's not that you can't do the job, but do we really want that kind of a person who's going to go against our cause and our values in our organization? So it's for such things. It's not necessarily people saying, don't go party, don't go have fun, or probably don't share your political views, right? But we're looking for some kind of synergy in terms of values and in terms of culture more than anything.
What advice would you give then to youngsters who exist in that world?
Right.
That's the world that they spend more time in. What would you say to the youngsters looking for work and they post all the time, or whether it's TikTok or whatever?
Yeah. For me, I think for a youngster or for somebody that's also looking for a job, I'd say use your social media platform to find a job. Yeah. Right? Sometimes you're not gonna directly get feedback if you are applying, but your engagement on social media with the companies that you are interested in joining, people that are in the profession that you are in, So what you post, let what you post enable you to land yourself your first job or your next job, right? You get called sometimes because someone says, you know what, I've seen your post on social media that you've been talking about this topic for the last 6 months. And this is what I'm keen at. Are you able to actually partner with me to do this job? And this is the cut that I'm going to give you without you having to go apply. Right? You find someone that actually gets a job at a local radio station because they are on TikTok sharing their political views or their analysis of what's happening in South African politics or the South African entertainment industry, and somebody gets a job in a radio station of the youngster radio station. So what I'm saying is that I'm not saying don't have fun and don't share your fun, but also try to balance, because this is life. You can post, but for how long? But also use your social media to be able to create a brand for yourself, to be able to create visibility to the right people, to advance yourself, especially if you are interested in making it in corporate. If you're not, then maybe you can continue doing whatever. But if you're saying, you know what, I have this qualification, I want to go this direction, how do I use my social media to advance my career or to advance myself rather?
Yeah. Give me worst case scenario of someone that walked into an interview. Great CV. Great presentation.
Sure.
They sat down and they started talking and it just all went pear-shaped. Give me a scenario of what could have, in a moment like that, you spoke about confidence.
Sure.
Being a tool that you should bring with you. It seems like something crossed your mind.
Something crossed my mind.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago. I think we asked someone in an interview. I don't remember the exact question, but the question actually had to do with ethics, right? Where if you have ever done anything wrong to advance business or to advance the interest of a client, right? And I'm not sure if this guy thought this was good, but then he actually explained to us how he actually cheated the system because a particular broker needed them to actually pay a claim or whatever with regards to their, with regards to the portfolio. And because now we were interested, we are paying attention.
And you ask him more.
And he's going on and on. I'm thinking, why is he not stopping? And unfortunately, that didn't go further. And sadly, it was an internal person, right? Which was even more difficult.
Because beyond that point, it becomes...
Yeah, it becomes really sour. Yeah. Then you start asking yourself, to say, if this person has such a great record, what have they done to get themselves where they are? Which other rules have they broken
to get here,
to get where they are, And we didn't actually offer that guy the job because it's like, so you are advancing the interests of the broker, but the way that you're advancing them, you're actually breaking our own rules. So imagine if the legislators were to actually find out about that. Imagine if our other clients were to find out about that, to say, but you approved David's claim and you didn't, and and all of those things, so we didn't. So you also need to be careful. That was said, and because the person was actually good. And when you're interviewing internal candidates for a higher position, half of the time the intention is to get them there, right? And now you're thinking, so the person didn't get the position. Unfortunately, the line manager had to be the bearer of of bad news. But in that, we actually then get to explain, to say, you know what, it was not because you were not capable or whatever, but you had actually mentioned this, and it actually questions us if you are ready. Because if you advance to a senior level, you might actually need to make certain decisions, and those decisions as a leader might need to actually go against what you have done. So what is it that we're going to be, allowing or opening, to our customers? So
we've been talking about, before we started recording, about image.
Sure.
And we're still at the stage of me walking into the room to look for work. The image thing matters.
Sure.
The logic says suit and tie for us as guys. I don't know what it says for ladies, but I imagine there is a corporate wear.
Sure.
Tell us the importance of this part of the conversation.
All right. I think it also says something about yourself as well. All right. And it also depends where you are going for an interview for. All right. If it's in corporate, obviously you would expect somebody to have, probably pants and a shirt. If you don't have a tie, it's forgiven, right? With the lady, can just be a dress, a skirt, or whatever, and a shirt, and whatever. It's okay. But if you're going into an entertainment industry to be a DJ, really, nobody's expecting you to have, to have heels, So you also need to gauge in terms of the environment that you're going into. What are these people known for? Do you know people that are working there? But obviously you need to be able to represent yourself well. You need to be able to represent your brand well. You can't come like you actually just came from a party, and you're so tired and you're so sleepy.
You smell of alcohol.
You smell of alcohol, such things. And you're thinking, if you're coming for an interview smelling of alcohol, clearly you're going to come to work smelling of alcohol, because by then you would have landed the job. You didn't even land the job, but already. So first impressions are, last. It's about being representable. It's not about the kind of clothes that you wear. It's not about the brands that you wear.
I want to show
them. Right? And then sometimes with expensive things, but we just like we are as as ordinary as possible. So it's not really about brands, but it's about how you carry yourself, and how are you going to show up to the clients. Sometimes you find that you are in sales, or and this really requires you to visit clients, right? Because you're representing the company, you are the image of the company when you're visiting those clients. Then there's some level of courtesy in terms of how you look, that how you need to show to your clients, or to our customers rather. So it's not about that, but look, you must be put together.
I always say church wear is not so bad.
No.
Like you're going to church.
Right.
It's not so bad.
It's not really bad, guys. It's safe.
It's safe.
Like it's safe.
Safe.
Church wear is like really safe.
Yeah.
The dress that I wore on Sunday, I can wear tomorrow if you're calling me for an interview.
Yes.
My grandmother used to say there's a dress code for everything that you go to. A party and a church and a club and a picnic. She used to say this, everything has a place, right? Yeah. So don't try to mix things up.
True.
Unless you are going for a comedian, whatever, magician story, then you come with pink and red paints, then it's okay. But
of all those events your grandma describes, a church is the safest of all to wear like that.
If I come here, I'm wearing a dress, we're good. Yes. If I go to an interview tomorrow wearing a dress, I'm actually good. If I am whatever, church wear, it's the safest. It's the safest. Only after you have scouted the environment, then you can say no.
Yeah, maybe.
Let me now take those ones because I think they can fit in here. Right.
A few common mistakes that people who are looking for work right at the beginning. Give us some of those common mistakes. Sure. What have you observed?
The common mistakes, first of all, not having an updated CV.
Okay.
And that really also means that not updating your telephone numbers, not updating maybe your qualifications or your experience, right?
Your address.
Or, and all of those. So it's very important, because sometimes you find you're talking to someone and they say, no, I've just obtained my degree. I'm like, oh, but here it says matric and I'm actually looking for a learner. So, those things, right?
They didn't update
which could actually meant you maybe getting an interview for a better position or a higher position rather, you don't because your CV was not updated. That's number one. I've actually reviewed a CV of someone that missed a digit. So this person has not been working for years, but purely because maybe people have been calling because the CV has 9 digits. The
telephone number.
The telephone number, yes. Oh, no. Right? So it's those things. Grammar as well. It's actually quite important. The flow of the CV, like I spoke about it being in chronological order the last time. So those are the common mistakes probably prior to getting into the interview. And then when getting into the interview, the mistakes that people do, they go there unprepared. You don't read about the company. You don't go through the job spec to understand how your skills and your experience and your qualification can match the requirements of the job. You haven't applied your mind in terms of the gaps that you have picked up from the job description. How are you going to mitigate those even without experience, right? To say they're going to ask me a question about something and I haven't done, but I can say I haven't done this, but I'm willing to learn. But from my understanding, the process to follow to be able to address this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But once I get there, I'll be able to ask you as my line manager, but I'll be able to actually give my thinking before I advance, So people don't do that. I've spoken a lot about values. Values are very important. Sometimes we take them very lightly, but they're very important. And by values, I mean, know who you are, know who your own personal values are, so that you don't find yourself in an environment that clashes with your value system, right? And also understand the values of the organization that you are working for or you are looking to work for, right? Yes, sometimes values it might be there as an organization, but people don't really leave them. But that doesn't take away from you to say, I know what your values are and these are my values. So people don't do that. Lastly, when you're in an interview, remember it's a two-way communication. I might be interviewing you for a job, but you are also interviewing me as a potential employer to assess if, I can work for you.
You want to work for these people.
So at the end of an interview or during the interview, you find a recruiter saying, do you have any questions for us? And somebody says no.
I'm fine.
I'm good. Because maybe you just can't wait to get out of the room. Maybe you're sweating. Maybe you're like, my heart is pumping so fast.
You don't want to start a new conversation.
Right? Because it might actually drag for another 20 minutes. So people do that. And I also encourage people, have 2 or 3 questions that you prepare for, for the interview so that you also show interest. There must be something that you want to know. You can actually ask, what about the culture of this company? How would you describe the culture of this company? Or ask, why is this job vacant? Is it new or is, are you replacing someone? Or if you're replacing someone, how long has the vacancy be open for? And if someone says 8 months, you can okay, why that long? It means they are fussy or they're not getting the right people or what happened. And if it says 8 months, you can ask, but why that long? Were you guys struggling to find the right candidate before myself? If you want to, now that you're comfortable and you can be cocky, you know what I mean? So have questions that you prepare, and it can be about anything. You can even ask about learning opportunities. You can even ask about, career progressions, how they work. What is it that they are focusing on? What is their strategy? What do they want to be known for? Sometimes say, what would be the ideal candidate for this job?
Yes.
Or now that you've interviewed me, do you think I would be able to fit into that job? And if not, what would you say I need to improve? So engage the employer.
They'll probably light up and want to
yes. And sometimes with the employer, because some people are not expecting these questions, right? You can be able to pick up if, they were shocked or they were not prepared. And you can also start making your own decisions around, and all of those things. So those are the mistakes that people do. They go there, they just want to answer. They don't ask questions. They don't engage. They don't participate. It's a two-way conversation.
Do you find that section of the interview might even sell you? You find that you had lost the game, the entire 90 minutes.
Definitely.
That extra time.
Right.
When they said, do you have any question?
Yes.
Now you're literally starting a new conversation.
Right.
You might turn it around for yourself.
Definitely. For example, especially when you ask the question to say, can you just describe the ideal candidate for this job? Maybe when they asked you in the beginning, tell us about yourself, you were not able to articulate it well. Yeah. But now that you're saying to them, explain or describe the ideal candidate, and they describe that candidate, and you're thinking, but that's me. And then you go, I think that's actually good, because remember when I was working for company XYZ,
I did this.
This is what I did, and this is how I showed up, and this is how I owned up in this, in this particular project, and this is what we delivered, or this is, and at that point, someone in the panel will say, okay, tell us more. Right? Oh, and how much did you save? Or what did you do? Or what was the feedback that you got? What was the recognition? Oh, really? And and all of those things. And that earlier part has actually been forgotten and things have actually taken a 360 turn.
You're giving yourself another chance.
Of course.
Basically.
Of course. So don't miss that opportunity. Maximize it.
Yeah.
Maximize it.
And surely people miss it, hey?
They do. I've interviewed a lot of people who would actually say, I don't have questions for you. Or people that, another mistake, I'm going back now that I'm talking to you, where you ask a question and maybe you find that the question is very complex or maybe it's not easy for them to comprehend, and you can see a person biting their tongue and trying to answer, but they're
all
nowhere.
Over the place.
And it's fine to say, can you repeat the question? Or can you paraphrase the question for me? Or can you please break down the question for me to actually, because I get a sense that it has two parts in it, but can we, or they ask the question and you're not sure. And you can say, just to check my understanding, is this what you are asking? Guys, it's allowed. We are human beings.
Don't rush to answer.
Don't rush to answer.
You feel you have to answer every question.
Right. And if somebody judges you on that, it's their problem. It's not yours. Guys, paraphrase. Please say your question again. Please say it slower. Is this what you mean? Did I understand you correctly? Oh, I did. Okay, cool. It's okay. So you actually need to also make it comfortable for yourself if the other party is not making it comfortable for you.
I can only imagine a young person going for an interview for the first time and they're overwhelmed by the environment.
Sure.
They struggled to get here. They struggled to raise the money. It was their first time getting into a taxi to Joburg. Whatever the experience is, and now they're here. Already they are a minute late. There's a lot going on in their lives at that moment. They're overwhelmed by this. They walk in, they sit down. They feel every question matters that you're going to ask. Like when they write, and these are students, they're from answering questions in an exam, and they will answer everything, even when they know it's like, I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm going to say this. I imagine an environment like that where a young person is just going to throw you with answers, irrespective of whether their answers make sense or not.
Right? And it does happen. And we have a responsibility as, HR professionals or recruiters, to actually ease people, especially youngsters.
Yeah.
This person has never been in an interview before. Or this person has never been in a big corporate, right?
Yes.
Now they're sitting in this interview room. It's glass walls, it's rolling chairs, it's screens, there's bottles of water or whatever. It's aircon. It's a panel and the panel is speaking English and they're speaking bombastic words.
Or they're laughing as you walk in.
Yes, and you're thinking they're laughing at me. Maybe I don't look too good, or maybe, So it's all, we have a responsibility, guys. Like hence I say we need to actually bring the human part into human resources. So in such instances, you need to make a person feel at ease. We've had interviews where somebody says, what, I'm running late. Yes, there are instances whereby you find that at that particular point in time, it might be difficult to contain it, or, maybe the panel has other commitments and, you might need to reschedule and all of those.
It's a series of many interviews.
And you really can't. But sometimes if someone say, that, I'm late, you can actually say, you know what? It's okay, come through and we'll see what we can do.
True.
Or we will still continue to see you, but unfortunately it mightn't be for an hour, but it might be for 30 or 45 minutes, right?
Yes.
So where we can make concessions, I think it's important that we do. And especially where we see that somebody's trying. There are people that just don't show up for interviews. But if someone has courtesy to say, I'm on my way, but, there's an accident at Empire Road, we know how Joburg it is.
And the chances are that you know about that accident as well.
I saw it, right? And the thing I know in Joburg in M1, if there's one car stuck on the road, it's chaos.
Yeah.
It's literally chaos. And sometimes you can say, no, it's fine. Let's reschedule for another day. Or maybe come through. We will not be able to see you at 11. But if you're comfortable, everybody can make time at 1 o'clock. Will that still work for you? Will that still enable you to get you home? So we need to be considerate. It's not practical all the time, but where it is, you have to.
Am I correct in getting the impression that you are equally looking for someone to employ? That means you also want...
Of course.
This person just as much as they want the job. Because the impression could be, they have options. They can choose from 100 other people. I'm not that special.
No, believe you me, sometimes you are special. I can tell you, I can give you an example. Like sometimes you are literally special.
Yeah.
And we're like, we want that person.
Based on the CV?
Based on the CV. We really want that person. We will wait for you. There's times whereby employers would actually even interview you at a coffee shop.
Sure.
Because we want you. And sometimes maybe you might be junior, you might be a graduate, but guess what? You're actually doing data analytics and we're actually trying to build this capability, and we know that we don't have enough in the country, right? So if this person say they're late, no. We need to get them in at some point, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they've got good academic record, or they've got this particular module that they've done so well, which is something that we don't have. And remember, employers are looking. As much as you are looking, they're also looking. It's not as if there's a well of talent, guys. We talk about the scarcity of skills. We talk about, the shortage of talent in our country. So we don't really have that well. We talk about war for talent, right? Yeah. So as much as you are looking, employers are also looking, and that's why I said sometimes we just need to bring the human element to it. Yeah. If you can't, due to circumstances, or maybe the panel had to actually drive in or fly in from somewhere, then maybe we understand, and maybe that it was just you're not lucky, But if you can, then we do. They are looking, and that's why it's called. Once you get in, that's why it's called an employment relationship. It means it's a give and take. I give you my skills and my expertise. You compensate me for that, right?
Yeah.
It's not as if
I'm here to get money.
I'm not working for you. I'm working with you, right?
Yeah.
We are working together because you need me and I need you. I need you for my own economic purposes and lifestyle, but you need me for my skills and my expertise. And I think if we can start embracing and remembering that as HR professionals and just as the management and the leadership of organizations, we could actually create, beautiful cultures and environments for people to thrive.
Am I wrong in also assuming that the minute you call me for an interview, that minute already says there's something special here that they may have noticed?
Yeah.
So that state of mind must live with inside of me as well.
Of
to
course.
say they see me. So now I have to move to the next step of really convincing them that what you saw is true.
It's real, right? It's real. And hence it's also important, especially when we focus in this conversation, especially on youngsters, right? How you also engage with someone telephonically that you don't know is important. Someone can be arrogant, especially with, these Gen Zs and stuff like that. It's like you calling them, they applied, but it's like now they want to take over the conversation. And you're like, bruh, what's up now? And have you ever seen this? And I'm sure you know it, but it's very old. You call someone because normally some landlines are private number and someone says, private number, hello? Hey, really?
Yeah,
but anyway, anywho, it's fine. It's fair. I'm a private number. Continue. Yes, you're speaking to so-and-so from company XYZ. Yeah, what do you want? How can I help you? Oh, okay. All right.
Already you're getting... Because you're seeing their true personality.
You're seeing their true personality. And once you say, I'm calling from company Z, yes, ma'am, sorry. How are you? Yes, I am so-and-so. Yes, I'm here. How can I help? Right? Now the tone also, the tone also changed. But I must say, when you get a call from an employer or from a recruiter, from an agency, it says there's something that you have that's valid. And somebody's looking for it out there. So don't actually ever disregard that. You might go to the interview and you might not get the interview, but it means that there's something in your CV that another person sees and the next person might see as well.
Exactly.
So don't be despondent.
Maybe even going back to the question you said earlier, what type of candidate are you looking for?
Sure.
That matters because now you know whether you get the job or not, you know the characteristics
definitely
that probably the next employer may look for.
Definitely.
Now the next one's like, I'll do better.
And that's the thing. Always learn from your interview process. Sometimes you might say, I've been to 2 interviews and I was not successful. I often say to my clients, what did you learn though? So what happened in the first interview that maybe made you think you were not successful? And what happened in the second interview? And what questions did they ask? And what questions did they struggle with? So as much as you might not have landed the job, trust me, there's a learning in there.
You learned something. It could be confidence. It could be articulation. It could be going back to refine your answers, preparedness, or maybe some of the questions you couldn't answer. You go back and you Google those questions and see what are the possible answers. Or sometimes someone might say, you know what, you've been answering quite well, but you've not been giving me examples. Then you start applying your mind. They're asking me about time management, but I haven't worked before. But you can say,
attended my class on time for the 3 years that I was at university.
Yes.
Somebody can say leadership, but I was a class captain in my second year, and during that time, this is what happened.
Yeah.
So even with experience, it's not far-fetched. Don't go into an interview room and say, how do they ask for experience while I haven't worked before? Trust me, you have worked. By virtue of you finding yourself at a learning institution, finding yourself in a community, there is a role that you are playing, whether as a manager, whether as a leader, whatever. The fact that we live in a society surrounded by people, we learn everything every day. You waking up to make it to class every day, say something about your time management, you being able to submit your assignments timeously without asking for extensions.
It's an example.
And it's dedication,
use.
it's commitment, right? It's discipline. So you actually have those things. So don't shy away or don't assume you can't answer with practical examples because you have never been in a working environment. You work every day with the interactions that you have.
I saw a cartoon yesterday on Twitter. It was this candidate who was in for a job interview.
Sure.
And they said, do you have experience? And he said, no, I don't. They said, great, you'll get it from this company. We'll give you the experience. I've lived in a world, and you know this is probably as good as I do, that we are not born with the experience.
We're not.
Somebody has to give you the first one. Then you have something. It's like credit record. You have to get the first one so you can solve and say, I have it.
Right.
So it's the same thing. You have to jump it, but somebody has to help you along. The question of experience continues to be a problem for a lot of young people.
It does.
In your experience, one, how do I overcome that? And two, are you on the other side of this conversation saying, but we are where we're actually looking for someone who doesn't have the experience? What happens? How do we overcome this problem? That's a deep breath.
It is, right?
Why the deep breath?
I think it's a deep breath because we hear about it quite often, right? And to your point, somebody gave us an opportunity when we never had experience.
Yes.
To be honest, right? And it baffles me when somebody says, no, but I can't hire her because she doesn't have experience. It's a data capturing job. It's a receptionist. It's a filing clerk. What experience do you need? Right? And where do you expect that person to get that experience if you don't give it to them?
The data capturing, we're at home.
Guys. So I think for me, it's actually that. I think that's why the deep breath, because we know, everybody else knows that somebody has given them the opportunity. And it baffles me now to be always talking about experience, especially at entry-level job. To say it can't be. But anyway, how do you navigate that? Because we will always have this issue. We've had it since forever, right? I think it goes back to what I was saying to you earlier, to say you have the opportunity to create your own experience through your life experience or your life journey, right? And take learnings from there and then apply it, into a work environment to say, how would I show up if this was in a work environment? Number one. Number two, I often advise students, right, to say, if you are a student at university or at a college or wherever, right, there's so many platforms and communities within that environment that you can participate in. It could be political, it could be cultural, it could be religion, it could be... At university, believe you me, there's
everything.
There's always a poster for everything. Read those posters and find one that resonates with you.
You can't just go to class and go to rest.
Going to class and coming back, believe you me, that's you're already killing yourself, right? So be curious in some, what can I do? What can I participate in? What initiative can I do? And that is you having to get work experience, right? And then we also have NGOs in our communities, right? Which NGO or which cause really resonates with you? Is it GBV? Is it drug abuse? Is it whatever, vegetable garden, whatever. Find something that talks to your soul and participate in it and use that as your experience, all right? And you can do that every school holidays or, weekends or whenever that you have time, I'm so and so, I'm a second year, I'm doing this, I'm just wanting to know what is it that I can do to volunteer. Yeah. I don't really advocate a lot of times for volunteering because sometimes people have to take a taxi and all of those people have to eat, but it might be the only option if we really need to address this issue of work experience, right? Imagine I wouldn't be where I am now if someone didn't give me a job without knowing anything. The only thing that I had was my third year results. You know what I mean? So we need to do that. So navigate those things through finding forums and people to say, even if you are helping someone at a car wash, it's a job.
Yes.
Put it in your CV, right?
Particularly at that early stage.
At that early stage. Yeah. At university, you've got kids that are always selling stuff, food, ice cream, whatever.
Small business. Your small business.
You're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Right? You
have initiative.
Yes, you have initiative. This is what you sell. And actually, that is actually quite a good example because it means you are studying.
Yes.
You are selling. And by virtue of selling, it means you need to count money. It means there's profit. It means you actually have times where you open this small tech shop of yours during free period, or maybe you deliver to people's, rooms. That really says something about an entrepreneurial mindset.
And you're still passing your schoolwork. You see, with all of that responsibility.
And they ask you about, time management, or not even time management. How do you manage conflicting priorities? Right? Already you're doing that. You're not working. You're not anywhere. You're still at university at the campus, but you're managing your studies, getting to class, getting to library, going to town and actually stocking up and then selling and preparing and having your small stall there. So people take these things lightly, but believe you me, if someone was to say that to me in an interview and somebody that went through 4 years of university with nothing, I'm likely to go for you.
It did nothing at all.
Yeah, I'm likely to go for somebody who might have an average of 60 or 65 or even 50 to someone that might have a higher average. But I'm really this person is already in the system. Yeah. This person can actually, understand how the world works. They can fit into the environment. They can navigate challenges. They've actually dealt with this. Yeah. You want somebody to show you that given the opportunity, I will. And I'm not sitting on my mind.
No. Now you get a job. Say you're an intern.
Sure.
It's a 1 year. I'm familiar with the 1 year internship at SABC. Maybe you get a job as an intern, and they try you in different parts of the organization. For 2 months you're there, and for 2 months you're there, just to expose you. How do you land the job? Because this is just for a certain period. Because we were talking about how some kids would come in, get the job, great, but lose it.
Sure.
And not get the full time, the permanent job. What happens there? What's been your experience?
I think what's important when you get there, really understand why you are there and what do you want to get out of there. Okay. And it could be what I want to get out in the 12 months. And does that mean staying beyond the 12 months or just taking the experience because I want to go somewhere else? Okay. But what's important for you is for you to show up, right? Embrace the opportunity to learn and be curious. Oftentimes you find interns, because everybody's busy. I don't want to lie. Everybody will always tell you that they're busy or they don't have time. So I'm assigned an intern, but I'm busy because I've got my projects, I've got my deliverables, I've got a team that reports to me, and then now there's this intern. I can't even give them something to do because now I haven't even had the time to show them, right? Yeah. But as an intern, what do? You can say, I know you are busy, but is there anything out of your to-do list that I can action for you? Or can I attend a particular meeting with you and take minutes for you? Or maybe you sat in a meeting, you were taking your own notes, not for anybody else, and you pick up something that's simple that you can do, right? And you said to your boss, you mentioned that you actually needed to meet David from the marketing team. I've just checked with David, and tomorrow after lunch, David is available. Must I actually book that for you or ask your PA to book that for you? So you need to do that. However, you also need to say to your manager, I know you're busy, but can you just sit down and tell me what is it that I can learn this week? Or can we agree on actions or deliverables? So don't be despondent as well. Don't say,
and don't sit back.
No, the person doesn't have time. And then you come to work and you sitting on your phone, every day, and you're not doing anything because someone is not. So try to try to hold people accountable, right? I know it might not be easy and you might not get it first time around, but the more persistent you are, someone at some point is going to say, okay, let's sit down.
Okay.
It's been busy and I apologize.
Give you 30 minutes every day.
So we start working at 8. Are you able to get here at quarter 2 or half past? And let's talk in terms of what you need to do, right? And maybe I'll put in a plan and I can sit with so and so. And sometimes if your manager is so busy that even if you are trying, they can't, then go to the team members that have been there. So-and-so, is there anything that I can help you with today?
Yeah.
So-and-so, can I go to this meeting with you today? Can I sit with you when you are busy drafting this particular document so that I can see what goes into it when you are drafting? So be curious. And I think we lack curiosity. Now that you've landed the job, you're assuming that people are 100% ready, Yes, there are companies that get their graduate program or leadership program, right. The structure, the commitment from line managers, from the team members and all of those. But then you get those work environments that are really not as structured. And that's where the challenge is. And that's where you actually need to show up, It might not be comfortable for you because you're junior, but you actually have to keep at it because remember, you've got the 12 months to gain the experience. If you sit there for 12 months and doing nothing, at the end of the 12 months, what are you going to say?
Yes. And they'll also say, well,
you didn't do anything. And they're not going to say because we were busy.
No. It's your fault.
You didn't show up. You were not curious enough.
Yeah.
So I think hold your people accountable. Be persistent. What can I do? How can I help? This is what I have done. Or sometimes, this is what I think I know of, from school, but I see here you do it differently. Is it a reason why it's different from the theory at school to why you're doing it like this at work?
Yeah.
So be curious and actually work on your communication skills, work on your confidence as well, because that's what's going to help you. How do you grab people's attention, right? How do you continue to learn? How do you, participate in knowledge sharing, forums at work that you find and you can sit in? So don't be passive. I think for me, that's the one thing. If I summarize everything that I've said now, just don't be passive.
Is there value in being useful? And when I use the word useful, where you become the go-to guy for something. We need to, only David will do that.
Yeah.
Because you kind of created your own little, you demonstrated a skill in something.
Yeah.
And now they want you to do. I use this example because at Radio 2000, this gentleman that joined us just before COVID, it was a graduate program of about, 50 people or so. Because SABC couldn't afford to keep all of them. They, after the program was done, everybody left.
Sure.
But the station vouched for this guy and said, never, we can't lose him. We already know what he can do. And he came here knowing nothing, but now he's great at what at the little that he's learned. And we fought for him to be kept. And indeed he was kept.
Sure.
So of the entire graduate program, he's the only one that got the job. So for me, what I saw from him was he became so reliable. We needed him for the random.
Yeah.
And I'm talking, for whatever it is, he was the guy to solve it. And now he's got a permanent job. He's okay.
Right.
So I guess there's value in being useful.
There is. And trust me, there is, right? And yes, sometimes maybe you won't do it forever, but at that point in time, you need to remember, I don't have experience, but I've got an opportunity.
Yeah.
How am I utilizing that opportunity? Right? And then you maximize that opportunity. And it's good to be the go-to person because people will know you. People will remember you. They will remember you being proactive. They'll remember your curiosity. So it's important. And sometimes you can even get to a point to say, you know what? I've been the go-to. David, give me something decent. You've seen what I've done.
Hey.
Right?
Yeah.
In the last 6 months. Have I let you down? No. Have I double booked you? No.
It's time for something better.
Is there anything that I'll still keep this, but something else? Sometimes you need to actually, I know this comes with a skill, and if you're new, you won't, but sometimes you need to even create your own job description.
Yeah.
Seize the opportunity. You can say, okay, I know that there's a gap. That receptionist likes going for lunch for too long, or they're on their personal cell phone, for too long and stuff. Step in there.
And say, no, you can go. I'll sit here.
It's fine. I'll sit here, right? Or whatever, and sometimes maybe you are in a comms department and whatever. should I check the samples for you? Should I check the color? Should I call the agency for you? No, I'll go with you to the agency. Actually, I'll start there because on my way home, I passed by Rosebank. So it's fine. I'll get you there.
And you find that you are so far from Rosebank, but you're creating.
Guys, you need to be eager. You need to be curious. You need to be hungry for knowledge. You need to be hungry. And once you get that opportunity, do everything you can to actually get there. Everybody started at the bottom. Whether you studied marketing management, whether you studied engineering, nobody started as a manager or as a plant manager, as whatever. We all started at the bottom, whether through learnership, internship, or graduate program, or being a temp for someone, or covering up, or even job shadowing, which is another thing that people can do to actually get experience, right? I don't need anything, but can you please shadow me for 2 days a week? That shadowing, you get it into your CV. It's experience. You have sat there, you have observed, you can even explain how the process and how the system works in a particular company. So
the current CEO of PwC Africa, I grew up with him. His current CEO of PwC Africa, just note this. His first job was working at Woolworths, packing the shelves. We all started somewhere. My first job, I was cutting potatoes at a cafe, at a fish and chips shop.
Sure.
And we all started somewhere.
As I said, we all started somewhere. And one thing, right, with your story, or even with the CEO starting at Woolworths, I often say, guys, even if you work at a fish and chips or whatever outlet, that thing is a company. It's a corporate. It doesn't matter the size. So if there's a packer, then you can say from a packer, I'm going to move to a cashier.
Yes.
Right? But because this is a big company, they've got a website. I'm going to go look what vacancies do they have. And I'm going to ask the store manager, when can I actually be a cashier? Or can you also, as a standby, when somebody cannot come in? If I'm one of those days, I'm off and someone calls in sick, please call me.
There you go.
You know, like we actually do that. Hence I said, show up.
Don't feel like they're taking advantage.
Don't feel that. And half the time people feel that, no, they're taking advantage. No, they're giving me useless jobs. No, they're actually taking me for granted. And imagine, I actually studied for 4 years and I've got a cum laude and everything else.
And now I have to make tea.
Right? Now I have to make tea. So be curious and be interested. If you're working for a company, the fact that you are working there, it means there's someone senior than you. How do I get there? You know, what is it what I can do? A lot of people work at restaurants half of the time, right? That restaurant, you were hired by someone, you have a team leader. It means there's HR, it means there's payroll, it means there's finance, right? It means a lot of things. And in those lot of things, it means there's something that you can do, that you can find yourself to move into.
To the next level.
And hence I said, it's your curiosity. It's your eagerness, you know, it's your hunger for knowledge and for experience that will be a distinguisher, or that could actually, you know,
set you apart from
everybody else, right?
So don't say no to making coffee.
No, but people will say no. Sorry, I didn't go to school to make coffee. Someone will definitely say, no, I didn't.
I have a BCom.
Yes, you know, and I've got a whatever BCom, and I've got this, I've saved these articles and stuff like that. You know, sometimes it's just getting that coffee across that's actually gonna land you in a boardroom having to give it, and you hear something and you're gonna ask your boss, I heard this, but I think I've done this before, you know, and I know how to do this. Can I actually do it for you? Right? So guys, we need to be open-minded. You know, we can't really be, you know, close-minded and just say, because I studied this, I'm gonna be this. I'm gonna be an HR graduate, HR manager, HR executive, HR director. The career journey, it's not linear.
Yes, not at all. There's something you said earlier where before we started recording about being the vocal one.
Sure.
You're describing an environment where there are different people coming, similar to what I said about the SABC.
Sure.
Different people coming in. Some are from everyone is from different backgrounds. And those that are kept, you noticed a pattern.
Yeah.
What was that pattern?
I think the pattern was how they showed up, number one. It was how they communicated. It was around the confidence as well, right? It was not purely the work on its own.
And the skill.
No, right? It was about, how do I take opportunities and how do I engage with the right people? How do I have a conversation with my line manager and my line manager's peer, or asking my line manager to expose me to certain things? But you find there are other people that would just put their heads down and come whatever time, then they leave and then they are gone.
Out
right?
of respect sometimes. It's our culture.
Yes. And true. Sometimes it's our cultural upbringing, right? And sometimes our culture has actually held us back to a certain extent. And there's nothing wrong. There's really nothing wrong. But if you go into corporate, right, and you bump into the CEO, probably in the lift, they would actually want to have a conversation with you. You will assume that they're the CEO, that you can't because they're senior. And you will start looking down. They will want to have a handshake with you, and it will not be firm. They would actually ask you, what are you doing in this company? And you will say, I'm an intern, and you will keep quiet. No, you are an intern and you're actually assigned to project XYZ, and I actually graduated from this university, and in the 12 months that I'm here, this is what I'm hoping to gain, and therefore I'm hoping to actually get permanent, right? So you already sold yourself. You already sold yourself. I've got a friend of mine who actually got a graduate program because of a conversation with the CEO from the ground floor to the third floor.
Whoa.
So you studied, I think the girl studied something in strategic communication or something at UJ, and then got into the lift with the CEO. The CEO asked and said, oh, you're temping here, but why are you not in the graduate program? She's like, no, I'm just temping because whatever. That was like the CEO after that says, like, come, went to so-and-so, this person did this, please get them into a graduate program. But bearing in mind, the graduate program at that time was midway. But midway, this lady...
It's the CEO's instruction.
The CEO's instruction. Yes. This lady currently right now, I think she's a head or a manager of communications in one of the banks.
Wow, it started with that
that graduate program, and with that conversation with the CEO. When the CEO saw who you are, I haven't seen you before. Yeah. No, I'm here, I'm actually temping, and this is what I'm doing, and. So going back to your question around the pattern, all right? So you don't go there because you have your certificate and then this is your job. You need to study the environment that you are in. Yeah. You need to seize opportunities that you find. But I want to say that working on your confidence, your self-esteem, your communication skills, it's equally important as working on your academics. Find a balance.
Be able to stand up straight and speak and be heard.
Yes, and actually and be heard. Yeah. And when you get to that time where it's an end of the graduate program and people have to make presentations, speak well in terms of what you have done, what you have achieved, the learnings, from the organization and from the people, and what exactly has been your highlight and your low light, and where do you see yourself? So my point with that pattern is that people there, they were those that remained, well-spoken, very confident, dressed fairly well, and, sometimes they will actually come into with whatever and maybe holding a newspaper, or a Fast Company magazine, for example, right? Who buys a Fast Company magazine as a graduate? But believe you me, if somebody sees you holding a Fast Company magazine or Financial Mail, it really says something, goes back to the curiosity. So don't just assume that your certificate
is what will sell you,
or your cum laude alone is that what will sell you.
Surely developing that character starts earlier.
Yeah.
Where you probably would have honed in on that skill at university to be outspoken and so forth and so forth. Don't just sit back and postpone being the assertive one that speaks up in meetings. Don't wait for when you have a job.
Don't wait. And sometimes it's also like we said, it's upbringing, right? At home, maybe you're not given the opportunity to talk because whatever. But don't wait. Work on those things, right? And there are platforms that you can use to work on those. For example, at school, there's a debating society. There's public speaking.
There's political parties.
Guys, join. Yes. I said that to you earlier. Find something that's going to advance you. Find something that's going to take you out of your comfort zone. I do have a group of graduates that I coach. Yeah. I think this is my third group that I'm on now since 2021, right? And one of the things that we converse around is, because somebody says, I really don't find these sessions meaningful. I'm like, okay. Which is a fair comment. We take back the feedback, right? And then at some point, we were talking around the theme of personal branding and relationship building, right? And then I was asking them, guys, so what do you want to be known for in corporate? You know, when people talk about you, when you are not in the room, what do you want them to say? You know, and how do you go about establishing relationships in a workplace, right? And somebody says, no, I don't know, right? And this is the person that they say they don't find value in these sessions,
yes.
right? And the person said, I don't know. I'm like, but why don't you know? She's like, I don't know. I'm like, have you applied your mind to it? No. Have you thought about it? No. And I'm like,
these sessions are not worthwhile.
You know, are not worthwhile. And there is actually a plan to this session to say we're going to have these 6 themes and this is what each theme does. And when you come to a group coaching session, this is the pre-work that you need to do. Then after that, we're going to have one-on-ones because some people don't feel comfortable to talk everything in the group.
Of course.
And then prior to the one-on-one, there's also some questions that the person needs to answer. And, you know, we actually get to unpack, you know, what are some of the challenges, because we understand that moving from tertiary or from university into corporate, into the boardroom is not easy. And the purpose of this session is to actually help you navigate it. And some of the themes that we focus on, like your identity and who you are, relationship building, branding, conflict management, conflict resolution, performance, and all of those things, right? So you need to be, you know, like I said, back to my point, you need to be curious and you need to want to know. And if you see something like, why were you guys gathered there? And somebody can say, no, because we are unpacking this particular topic, but I'm interested. Or sometimes you find that you're not interested, but you might find another forum that might be of interest, right? So find something that's going to take you out of your comfort zone and find something that you believe it might be, you know, something or your challenge or a barrier and say, where can I find myself to actually work on this? So if you realize there's something is a developmental area, don't sit on it.
I always say when I see Mahoa gathered, I'm curious, what are they discussing? You find a lot of cars parked. Like, I need to be a part of that.
Right.
What are they talking about? And
Right.
why am I not invited?
Exactly. You know, because there's something that they are planning. There's an agenda that they need to advance.
Or maybe it's just a sports game. I want to know what the hell.
But in that sports game, they're not quiet.
No.
They're having a conversation.
Yes.
And somebody makes mention of something. Oh, but guess what? You know, my son is actually finishing off their law degree and they need to serve their article. So do you think that your friend's firm can actually help him up? There's a job. And it actually goes back to when you're applying for learnerships and internships and jobs, especially for early, professionals. Yeah. So don't solely rely on direct applications like, you know, I'm waiting for something to be advertised, you know, go to the company website, have a look. If you know there's someone that works for that company, you know, draft an email, ask someone to look at the email, then email it with your CV and position yourself. Someone might not respond, but someone at some point will actually respond, right? Yeah. So when you see people gather together, sometimes it might look like a rugby game, but it's definitely more than a rugby game, right?
It's always more than a rugby game.
It's always more than that, right? So you also need to actually understand when people gather, what are they talking about? Yeah. If you're finding yourself in a social environment, sometimes actually what are the benefits of being there? Yes, if something doesn't sit well with you, or you know the values there or whatever that they're talking about is not really you, yes, please, you know, step away. It's the same as people not wanting to attend staff functions, you know, or whatever, because it's so irritating. No, people there, whatever. You can actually go there and say, you know what, my aim today is to just greet David and tell him that I'm Boniwe Dunster.
Yes.
Right? And I'm in this particular department. And actually, I actually support your area. And your direct, reports are my customers or my clients, right? And that's enough. I saw this interview you did on 702. Right.
And I thought it was, I heard it and I thought it was so interesting. Do you know, on that topic?
Yes.
And then, now they know something about your interests.
You know, yes, on that topic, can you tell me more about it? Or I'm curious, right? Or it's part of my study or something else. So you don't really have to go there to sit there for 5 hours at the staff function, but you can actually be strategic about it. Who do I want to talk to? Who do I want to greet? Who do I want to create visibility with? And because it's a social setting, I will actually be able to talk to, unlike in the corridor or in the lift, which might not be easier. So certain things at face value, they might seem as if they are very tedious, they are not glamorous enough, or they are not of interest. But if you actually apply your mind, you might actually find the benefit hidden behind what's in front of you.
I think we sliced this one because I have many other issues. I do. Many other issues. That's why I was looking at my notes like, ooh.
All right. There's a lot.
Yeah. I didn't think this one will take so long. But I certainly hope it's been of benefit to,
I really hope so
to
too.
those that are searching for work and frustrated, because South Africa has its own problems.
It does.
The rate of unemployment has gone up again by marginal increase, but it is still an issue. That'll stay like that for a while. And when I saw the numbers, like, this problem is not going away. There's still a huge skill mismatch with regards to what the learners are learning at varsity and what the world of work is looking for. So all those issues, walk in knowing that you may not be a hot favorite, but you have something to offer.
You have something to offer.
Because of what you studied.
Definitely.
And they call me for an interview. There must be something in me.
There must be something, right? I was listening to an interview earlier when somebody said, you know what? Going to school or to university to study something, right? It's actually just the training of the mind. And, training of the mind in terms of how to think differently. And that's how you need to look at it.
That's true.
Rather than actually the stream that you have chosen, right? It means that if you put your mind to something, you can actually do it, right? So as much as we also have a high unemployment rate, which is alarming and concerning, if you were to get into a conversation with someone around something that you didn't study, but you can just say, you know what, give me an opportunity. I actually did this particular program for 3 years and I was committed to it. And this is what I have achieved. And same applies to this one. Give me an opportunity and I can show you that I can learn, I could be beneficial to you, right? So also the social capital that you have actually built at university, utilize it effectively. Keep contact, with your fellow classmates, with your SRC members, with your lecturers as well. And universities, they also have studies, I don't know what they call them anymore, but they've got centers, right, where they can help in terms of preparing for these things, Get yourself involved in understanding the whole offering or the whole value chain of an institution. It's not only about going to class and writing exams. There's a lot more. So you actually need to leverage off that.
An organ all on its own with little things that are happening. It's a community, it's a society of all sorts of things that are happening.
Be curious. It's like when you go to a new place and you're like, I need to buy a drink, you ask. So and so, you're from around here. Where do I get this? Oh, there. You know what? I feel like eating this thing. Where do I go? No, you go that side. No, I'm not sure, but ask this. Curiosity, guys.
It's very key.
Curiosity is very key.
Let's hope you learn something from this skill. Our next chat is going to be on the world of work, the environment itself. This has to do with provision of employment, employers rather. Do they provide correctly for their employees? All of those things. Okay. There's always, now you work here. What are your rights? Now they've hired me. I need to know lunchtime. All of that. There's a lot coming, trust me. So keep tuning in. This is an important part for me. I find that we can solve this problem of unemployment in other ways. So we'll see what we do. Thank you so much, man.
Only a pleasure. Thank you. Can we take it in? Like a traditional healer or something like that.
Because we come with different problems. And you say, no, bona, Sahara. Reka ing,
we sort it out.
We'll talk again soon, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
King David Studio Podcast.